Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 4, Episode 28 of Full Time. I am your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. We remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we welcome you to Full Time, where we get to talk about the beautiful game. G, how are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing good. Still a little sore from chasing your shadow for 90 minutes, but outside of that, doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And I'm looking forward to today's show because we get to recap some really wonderful things. And in that show, of course, here and now today, we are going to talk about the Euro 2024 final, the Copa America final, as well as the third place match and the summer transfer market. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get things going here by looking at the Euro 2024 final, which of course was played between England and Spain. The final that had so much history riding on it, along with the chance for either nation to be crowned champions of Europe, completely and totally excited the soccer world. The final itself saw a relatively cautious first 45 minutes where things were level at 0-0 going into the halftime interval. A lightning quick start to the second half would see Spain go ahead inside of 2 minutes thanks to Nico Williams. After England went to their bench, it was substitute Cole Palmer who would level things up at 1 apiece in the 73rd minute. England did not carry on with their momentum, but instead found themselves on the back foot, which would eventually lead to a Spain match-winning goal in the 86th minute. Despite a late push from England, it wasn't enough, and Spain, for the fourth time in their history, are crowned Euro champions. Gitano, I'm going to hand it over to you here. This game had quite a bit in it, particularly in that second half. What can you say about it?
Yeah, that first 45 was, I think dull would be putting it lightly. Not a lot really from either team. Like I said, super cautious. Obviously England kind of all tournament weren't really generating anything, and I don't think Spain were taking like too many chances. It almost felt like Spain was like feeling England out, just kind of like getting a vibe for it, and England just kind of were there. That's probably about the best thing you could say for them in that first 45. But yeah, that second half, even with Roger being substituted out through that injury, which I thought was actually going to be a much bigger factor in the game. Turns out it wasn't. Considering he was just, player of the tournament, basically, the metronome behind everything great Spain had been doing. That sub really had, almost no effect. England didn't really take advantage of it. I thought the goal from Nico Williams was perfect. Like, that's just when you like envision how this Spanish team is playing, that transition cross, like switch the field, it was just brilliant from them. Really kind of, I think at that point, like set the tone of, okay, like now Spain kind of had their shit figured out. They, kind of knew what England were looking to do, what they weren't looking to do. Honestly, that Cole Palmer goal kind of came out of nowhere. We were joking when it happened, like that was the first time Jude Bellingham played like a one-touch pass like the whole game, and look how great it happened. Great things happened for them. Just felt like England were just slow on the ball, like second to react to everything. Just never really in the game. And it really wasn't until Ozerbayal had scored what turned out to be the winning goal that like England actually looked really good for that last like 6-7 minutes. Like the one thing I noticed, I don't want to say the players abandoned tactics or abandoned their coaching in that, but like one of the big things we talked about earlier in the tournament was like John Stones wasn't like moving the ball into midfield, progressing into midfield as much. Like almost immediately after that goal, he started making those runs, started dribbling through players, spraying the long balls. And it's like, it's just such a shame that it took that situation for this team to actually start like playing well. Because not that they didn't create chances in those last few minutes, but like those were probably their best minutes of the tournament in terms of how they were playing. They were robbed of a goal line clearance by Daniel, which not something, when you talk about the fantastic tournament that he had, that's not kind of the icing on the cake that you would have expected, but that header off the goal line was incredible. And yeah, Spain, rightfully winners of Euro 2024.
Yeah, it really was a case of that first half, that we were watching it at Tassie, and, one of the guys was kind of back and forth, and he was saying, what do you think about the first half? And we all kind of said, I don't know, there really wasn't anything in it, kind of dull, kind of boring. But then the second half, it completely went the other way, and Spain were phenomenal on the ball. They were counter pressing. And then to your point, England just kind of doing what they've been doing all tournament, just kind of hanging around. And then those final moments, they made that huge push and looked probably like they should have looked England the rest of the tournament. And then that goal line clearance to sort of cap it off. So the game itself, again, the mere fact that most of the entertainment was in the second half, regardless, it was still a championship, a final that we'll definitely remember. And Gitano, let's talk a little bit about the champions, Spain. This, for me, in my personal opinion, this was a team, a group of players who were truly united together. And like you said, and like we've been saying all these episodes, the best team at the tournament. They won all 7 of their games. They played the best football. And clearly in the final of the 2 teams, they were the best one. And before anybody might say that Spain is always comprised of a team full of superstars from Real Madrid and Barcelona, I'm going to throw this one out there. There's only 2 players in that starting 11 that played for Real Madrid or Barcelona. So you had Dani Carvajal and Lamine Yamal, sorry. And, you had a plethora of players coming from other places, the likes of Athletic Bilbao, Real Sociedad, Villarreal, Real Betis, Sevilla, and there were other clubs as well. So it kind of just goes to show, I guess, in my opinion, that you don't need all the biggest superstars from the 2 biggest clubs all the time to make a national team click. It really comes down to a collective group of people who have a clear identity, a style of play, a philosophy that they adhere to. And I think that's a huge credit to Spain's coaching staff as well, and the entire setup at the national level for Spain. So, Gitano, I'm going to pass it over to you here, and I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are on what Spain did, not just in the final, of course, but the entire tournament.
Yeah, not only were they the best team in the tournament, played the best football in the tournament, but they beat basically all of the best teams in this tournament. England, France, Germany, Italy, Croatia. You just can't have a more kind of deserving, champion than that, having basically played and beaten pretty comfortably, the majority of the best teams in the tournament. Obviously, they don't play everyone in the tournament, but I look at the Spain team, and if they had played a Portugal, if they had played, kind of any of these other great teams like the Netherlands, they would have beat them. They were that good. And yeah, to your point about kind of the composition of the squad, having a guy like Fabian Ruiz, who has maybe not had the best year. He's out of PSG, right? If I'm remembering correctly. He's just kind of not a nothing player in that squad, but he's not the main man there. And then he drops a tournament like that, like Dani Olmo out at RB Leipzig, who is probably their main man, but they aren't the biggest team in Germany, has a tournament like that. But it's just incredible. And I mean, I don't think you're ever going to replicate that kind of golden generation where it's basically the Barcelona starting 11, for Spain. But yeah, I think a lot of countries, specifically England, should maybe take a look at that model and say, hey, this is the end goal. This is the end game for us. This is what we need to be doing. But yeah, I just phenomenal from Spain. It kind of makes me feel slightly better about because I was a little too young to see that golden generation early. I really only remember the last Euros of it, the 2012 one. So it's not that it's anything close to that generation, but to see a Spanish team dominate, it's okay, this is how that generation looked, for them, and what I kind of missed out on. So I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, they were sensational all tournament, and they were pleasing on the eye. And obviously, you made a really good point about being on the side of the draw they were on. They had to beat all the best teams essentially to go through. So very fitting that they are champions of Europe. And when we look at England, we have a team here full of talented players, a mix of both young players, but also players with vast experience at international level. And they did have, however, I would say, probably one of the more bizarre tournaments that we've seen in recent memory in regards to a team that, reached a final. to start. They had to scrape their way through the group stage. They barely got past Serbia, if we remember, in that first game, the 1-0. And then they picked up draws against Denmark and Slovenia. And then they go to the knockout round, and they have to save themselves with seconds left to play against Slovakia in the round of 16 with a bicycle kick to send it to extra time, and then winning it there. And then it's Bukayo Saka who saves England in the quarterfinals by tying the game against Switzerland. And then they have to win it on penalty kicks. And then in the semifinal, they're down 1-0 early, and then they need a 91st minute goal coming off the bench from Ollie Watkins to send them to the final. So, there was a lot of hope for this England team, a lot of promise in terms of the type of football that they could have played and the results that they should have won in a different manner. But apart from maybe their luck running out in that final because they got found out by a much better team, what can be said for England this tournament and specifically in this final?
Yeah, it's weird because if you had offered England fans you're gonna lose in the final before the tournament, they probably wouldn't have been overly upset about it. You lose to Spain, they're one of the best national teams around. It's not really a terrible situation if you're gonna kind of take emotion and kind of feel out of it. Just losing maybe your final to Spain is not the end of the world. But it's just the manner in which they got there. It was just so disappointing. I know we've used that word a lot, but I feel like just kind of it sums it up. Just it felt like they dug themselves holes, and then in the dying minutes, play kind of to their potential, dig themselves out of the hole, and then just kind of rinse and repeat every game. And just finally with the Spain game in the final, they kind of weren't able to dig themselves out of that hole. Just just a lack of cohesion, a lack of tactics. If we're gonna be totally honest, Gareth Southgate did not have a great tournament tactically. His subs actually he kind of nailed. I'll give him that. He did nail the subs for the most part of this tournament. But just you look at that squad, you look at the starting 11s he was putting out. The potential for them to play so much better was there, and they just didn't. And like I said, in those last 5 minutes of the final, when the players kind of actually started doing the things that make them great, they looked really, really good. I will forever be confused why they weren't doing that, from the opening kickoff of this tournament. But yeah, overall, again, it's weird to say losing a final is a disappointing tournament. Second final in a row. It's a pretty young-ish squad. A couple of players are going to age out, but it should be a kind of a good building block for them. But they'll look back on it definitely as a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it well. That this was an opportunity missed, even against Italy in the last Euros. They'll probably look at that one as an opportunity missed. But the mere fact that they got back to another final, England, they had a chance to sort of do over what they didn't do the last time, and unfortunately it was more of the same for them. And to your point about Gareth Southgate, now he has left England, so the search for a new manager at international level for England is good and well on. So we don't necessarily know who's going to be the next manager there. The FA have come out and said that they're not limiting their search to just England managers or English managers, that they are willing to go foreign if need be. So who knows what's going to happen with England moving forward. They do have a plethora of young talent coming through, so you'd imagine that they will be there in years to come. But it was slightly disappointing, I would have to say, from England, because again, we thought that this team would produce a better brand of football. It didn't happen, but they did get found out in the end by a very, very good Spanish side. And that does conclude, of course, Euro 2024 for us. We've really enjoyed covering it here on Full Time, and in next summer it will be the Euros for the women. So we will look forward to covering that one there. So always a great deal of fun to cover an international tournament like this one. And another tournament that we did have a focus on, and that we had a huge focus on from a biased perspective because Canada was in it, that of course was the Copa America. And the Copa America has now concluded, and it was a tournament that gave us plenty to talk about. In most recent times, the third place match, which featured Canada and Uruguay, had more than enough riding on it, even if it wasn't for the ultimate prize. After Uruguay started the match with a 1-0 lead, scoring in the opening 8 minutes, it was Canada who equalized 14 minutes later. In the second half, with both teams having chances, it was Canada who found a key goal in the 80th minute. Uruguay continued to press and get players forward, which would eventually pay off in the second minute of stoppage time as Luis Suarez scored to level things up just moments before the full-time whistle. The match required penalties, and where, of course, Uruguay got the better of Canada by a score of 4-3 on kicks from the penalty spot. Uruguay are third-place winners, and Canada finished fourth at the Copa America. Gitano, Canada had another good fight, another proper showing, which we knew that, they would do. That's just a given every time Canada takes the field. But the story for them, looking back on it, we just talked about England looking at a missed opportunity. I think the story for Canada will be a plethora of missed chances and not killing the game off in stoppage time by taking the ball to the corner flag and seeing the game out. It allowed Uruguay to, gain possession of the ball back and come back the other way and eventually tie it. So on the game itself, I'm going to hand it over to you now. Thoughts on the game and thoughts on Canada as well as Uruguay.
Yeah, I didn't really expect this at all from Canada. We knew that Jesse Marsh was going to rotate the side a little bit. There were some fresh faces in there. Tried a couple of things tactically. And so our B team with some, slightly different tactics really took on Uruguay's, A squad. No players were suspended from the semifinal kind of incidents there. So Uruguay had a full starting 11. They started all the big guns. And low key, we did really, really well against them. For a lot of that game, Canada was in control. 14 shots, 6 on target, 7 big chances created, slightly more possession than Uruguay. Canada looked really, really good with our B team. I thought the subs that came in also made a big impact. But yeah, the story of the game is Canada missing 5 big chances. That's just, at an international tournament, you can't miss 5 big chances in a game. And obviously Uruguay, Luis Suarez up front coming off the bench, you don't need to give him more than 1 or 2 chances. And obviously he made us pay. But overall, I thought that was a super impressive 90 minutes from the boys. Not that this tournament wasn't a good sign of things to come, but, the fact that we could, kind of move some pieces around, give some guys rest, and still compete with one of the better teams, in this tournament. It's maybe a little more of a boost than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting that kind of performance from them. Obviously, penalties are penalties. Not gonna, hate on the guys too much for that. I saw Alphonso Davies taking a lot of stick for his the Panenka that hit the crossbar. The way I see it, the keeper went the wrong way. He just if he undercooks that just a little bit, it's a perfect penalty. So to kind of hate on him for that, I don't understand. Obviously, if the keeper had stepped straight and grabbed it, that would be a little more frustrating. But sold the keeper on it. I thought Dan St. Clair had a pretty decent game as our backup keeper, and yeah, I just thought Canada looked really, really, really good in this. Obviously a little tactically naive in those last couple of minutes. Probably should have tried to kill the game in the corner, or maybe not been as open, but still a really young team. This is a great learning moment for them. As long as Jesse Marsh kind of fields it that way and takes it that way, which I'm pretty sure he will. He's a very good coach. But yeah, I'm not too heartbroken about this. Again, given the circumstances, a young rotated squad against one of the better teams in the tournament. I think this is a really, really great platform for this program to build on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this will be a big learning curve this tournament. But I think what Canada produced at this tournament in terms of their quality of play, their style of play, their cohesion, their togetherness, I think Jesse Marsh has already started doing a phenomenal job there. And you hear him in his press conferences when he speaks about Canadian football and the direction that he's intending to take it and what he wants to see happen in this country. I'm very hopeful for what's going to happen with Canada soccer moving forward and everything surrounding it. So a very good showing from Canada this tournament. And of course, we knew that Uruguay was going to be Uruguay in that game. But to hold a little bit more possession than them, to create all of those chances against a team that was not rotated, I think that speaks volumes to what Canada did this tournament and where we are going from here. And of course, it was all eyes on the Copa America final, which was contested between Colombia and Argentina. After the match was delayed for nearly an hour from its original start time, the game did eventually get underway. After both teams tested out one another in the opening 45 minutes, they both went into the locker room level at 0-0. In the second half, as the game began to become more open, it was an Argentina goal, or so they thought, in the 75th minute, which will be ruled out for offside. In the end, nothing could separate the two sides inside 90 minutes, so the game required extra time to settle matters for the Copa America title. In the 112th minute, it was substitute Lautaro Martinez who would come up with the all-important and decisive goal that would put Argentina out in front by a 0-0. In the end, that is all that was needed as Argentina go on to win the Copa America trophy, their 16th in their history. Gitano, Argentina get it done, and Colombia put up one heck of a battle. Just first, on this game alone, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was, again, a game that kind of didn't play out as we expected. Colombia keeping out more possession, getting more shots, creating more chances. It's not, kind of the run of play we were expecting. But it's Argentina's ruthless finishing. Lautaro Martinez is one of the, to me, in my mind, when you talk about just goal scorer, he doesn't have to create. He doesn't have to, drop deep, doesn't have to go wide. Just, puts the ball in the back of the net. He is one of the best in the world at it. They gave him one chance. He took it. So, yeah, I thought it was a very different final than I was expecting. It was still very entertaining, very good. Just wasn't quite what I was expecting. A little more, madness, especially with what kind of happened pregame. I was just expecting a little more, just madness, craziness, a little kind of one last, Copa America crazy. But no, it was a very, very tame game. I thought Colombia were fantastic defensively, really limiting Argentina's chances. According to Football, Argentina only created one big chance, which is kind of nuts for how good they have been this tournament. But yeah, I thought, Colombia looked great. Obviously, just kind of missing that killer instinct. You get 19 shots. You'd hope that you kind of generate more than 4 on target. But that's the way this Colombia team is. They don't really have, a man up front scoring the goals. A lot of it's been relying on James Rodriguez, who's had a fantastic tournament. But yeah, I thought Argentina did well to kind of, absorb that pressure that Colombia did have. Their defense, like we talked about all tournament, was fantastic. Having Martinez in net. And then obviously he's taking that one big chance when they got it. I would say pretty rightfully deserved Argentina winning this. It was, though, a shame to see Messi go off injured in 60th, 65th minute. That was tough to watch.
Yeah, and his ankle, I've sprained my ankle a few times. That thing blew up like a balloon. And those are not fun. But on the game itself, I was just kind of, watching it, of course, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder when Colombia is going to score. That just kind of kept crossing my mind because they were creating all these half-decent chances. But when you're up against a team like Argentina, they really didn't look too bothered. They knew that at some point they were going to get their chance. And with a team like Argentina, sometimes you only need that one chance, and they will find the back of the net because they've been there, done that. That's their 3rd trophy in a row now. And of course, specifically when we're talking about Argentina, this is the 16th time, as we said, that they've won this specific trophy. They did have a fantastic tournament, to say the very least. Maybe they didn't have the most outstanding final, but we talk about it on Full Time all the time. And this being a player, I do too, and obviously coaching. More times than not, you actually don't play your best game in whether you're playing, whether you're coaching a team that is playing, you typically don't. But we applauded Spain earlier in our show, and we said that for the football that they played at the Euros, they categorically were the best team at the tournament. But G, for this Argentina team, can we say, even though it's a different competition, could we say that they were the best team at the tournament here as well?
It's tough. I want to, throw a bit of bias in there and say Canada looked really, really good. Gave Argentina 2 really good runs for their money. Took Uruguay, all the way. Looked very good and very different across all the games. It wasn't just kind of the same thing. Canada was able to kind of adapt to some different situations. But at the end of the day, it's hard to say Argentina wasn't the best team in the tournament. Obviously, winning it, the quality they have in their squad. It's really kind of tough to look past that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm going to say that they were, but up until the quarterfinals, I was saying that Venezuela were the best team at the tournament for me. I thought that they were phenomenal until they went out. But Argentina, maybe not in the same way as Spain, but certainly they were a force to be reckoned with this tournament, and rightfully so, coming out as champions on the other side. And for Colombia, their long wait for more than 20 years to lift this trophy goes on. They gave everything, not just in this final game, but this entire tournament. Some huge names in that Colombia side. You just mentioned James Rodriguez, who kind of rolled back the years, if you will, had an amazing tournament. But they did showcase themselves to be a really, really good team all tournament. So what are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I was not expecting this tournament from them. We know that they're going to be good. They're going to be kind of in the mix. But yeah, I just thought they found another level. James Rodriguez, like I said, rolled back the years, looked like 2014 in Brazil all over again, which was fantastic to watch. Honestly, it's not the best squad. It's not the best starting 11 in this tournament. But when you have a player of his quality, he can kind of elevate those players around him to that level. Unfortunately, you run into Argentina in a major final. It's not really going to end well for you, in that situation. But yeah, I thought, this group's a little older. I don't think they maybe have too many tournaments left in them. But, they definitely still have, at least one more World Cup and probably another Copa America in them. And I would expect them to kind of use this and kind of learn from it. Obviously, it's tough to lose a final like that. Waiting over 20 years now to lift this trophy again. It's tough, but I expect a good bounce back from them.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the future, as well as what happens with Argentina. If Brazil bounces back, what Bielsa does with Uruguay, and of course, looking forward to seeing what Canada can do as time moves forward. And we'll see if the dumpster fire that is the United States Soccer Federation, if they're going to sort their mess out at some point as well. So that does, of course, as we said with the Euros, that wraps that up. And now, of course, we wrap up the Copa America. So, that's what seems like a little over a month. And in fact, it is a little over a month that we talked international football essentially every single week, sometimes twice a week. So how have you enjoyed covering all of this?
It's been awesome. It's just, there's something different about like these international tournaments. It just, it just brings something else out, as like fans. It's like just like kind of putting aside like your club tribalism, if you want to call it that, to bring out your national tribalism, which is great. It's always nice to see the quality of the players kind of on display. We don't get to see a ton of La Liga or Bundesliga in Canada, so it's nice to see those quality players kind of just more accessible. And obviously the quality of the games themselves were fantastic. We talked about it. Outside of England, there were really no like big teams who kind of didn't have like, at least like, maybe if they weren't good games, they were at least exciting. There was at least something going on. So yeah, I thought just a fantastic 5.5, 6 weeks of international football.
Yeah, about a month and a half, give or take. So really enjoyed covering all of that here on Full Time. And just like everything on Full Time, you can catch and witness all of the best news in the world of soccer right here. And we love covering it. So long may that continue. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The summer transfer market goes on, and we will be highlighting some of the recent moves that have taken place in the world of football. The following transfer market news comes from The Guardian, so be sure to check them out as they provide up-to-the-minute transfer market news. First, it's Joao Palhinha, who goes from Fulham to Bayern Munich for a fee of $42.3 million. The Portuguese international signs a 4-year contract at one of Europe's top clubs a year after his deadline day move fell through. Palhinha has his move, and everything is now been sorted there. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one's kind of been on the cards for a while now. Bayern trying to get it over the line the last window, kind of failing on deadline day. I love this move. I think he's, perfect age, 29, to kind of make that transition seamlessly. Quality player. I think Bayern are getting him, relatively not cheap, but not expensive, 42 odd million. I love this move kind of all around. I think this is going to be great.
Yeah, so do I, and I've always rated him as a player, Palhinha. I think he's fantastic for Portugal, and I think at club level, now that he's going to Bayern, I think he's going to find, a lot of success there. difficult with a club like Fulham, but such a standout there. And I think now his career, even though he's 29, and not to say it's on the back end, but he has less years than when he started. I think his career is going to take off, and probably with trophies and playing some really exciting football, of course, in Germany, but also in the Champions League. Ernest Nuama goes from Molenbeek to Lyon for 24.1 million. After a successful loan spell last season, the 20-year-old returns on a 4-year deal. Gee, is this a good move?
Yeah, I don't hate it. He's only 20, primarily a right winger, 3 goals in 33 appearances last year as a 19-year-old is, nothing to, shy away from in the league, Liga. Yeah, it's, maybe not, he's not going to be your 15, 20 goal guy next year, but definitely one for the future.
Definitely one for the future, and I think Lyon are about to hit a switch, and I think that they're going to be progressing forward in league big time. Amari Hutchinson goes from Chelsea to Ipswich Town for a fee of 22 million. The wide attacker returns on a 5-year deal after scoring 10 goals on loan to help the Tractor Boys seal promotion. G, is Hutchinson set to be one of the main men now at Ipswich?
Yeah, I think so. It's weird. He is only 20, so it's weird to be kind of calling him, the main man in Ipswich. But really, he was, one of their key players in the promotion last year. I think it's, a super smart piece of business kind of to bring him back permanently. He's kind of already settled tactically, within the squad. So yeah, I think this is great all around for them.
I think so too. And yes, it is a little bit strange to say that a 20-year-old is going to be one of your main guys, but I do have that feeling that for Ipswich, they're going to be relying very heavily on him in their return to the Premier League. Enzo Lefi goes from Rennes to Roma for a fee of 19.4 million. The diminutive playmaker at age 24 makes his first foray outside his home country with an eye-catching move to Serie A. Gitano, Roma feel as though they've got a gem here, but did they?
I think so. I've been a big fan of him for a while now. Super creative, one of the best chance creators last season in Ligue 1. I think anytime you bring in a player that quality, kind of can't miss. And I think it's something that Roma has kind of lacked in the last couple of years. So I think that this is kind of a perfect fit.
Yeah, and you know what? When Roma, a club like Roma anyways, when they come out and speak so highly about a player or a coach or something like this, you know that they mean it because they're the type of team that have and club that have a rich history. So I think that they're speaking so highly of him. I think, of course, that they do mean it. And I think that there's lots of promise for Enzo Lefi now that he goes to Roma. Waldemar Anton goes from Stuttgart to Borussia Dortmund for 19 million. After helping Stuttgart to second place in the Bundesliga last season, plus earning a Euro 2024 call-up to the German national team, the center-back says that he is really looking forward to this new challenge. G, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, Dortmund are, and not that he's, the youngest player, but they do need to kind of refresh their back line a little bit. Mats Hummel's out the door. I think this is a pretty good replacement for him. I don't think he'll ever be, Mats Hummel's at his peak quality, but, very few center-backs, kind of in the world are going to be that right now. But yeah, I think, refreshing the squad, getting a little younger. He's a quality center back. Unfortunately, didn't get a ton of minutes at Euro 2024, but still had a fantastic season last year at Stuttgart. I think this is a really good signing.
Yeah, and you know what? Players at the right time need to progress their careers just like a coach does. And I think Roberto De Zerbi is, from a coaching point of view, I think that he's someone who you kind of see he's taking the steps to really progress his career. And I think as a player too, you have to try and pick the right moments to, go to a big club and try and test yourself and welcome that new challenge, as Anton did say. And I think right now is a good moment for him to do that. And I think that he is going to be well positioned to have a lot of success there, and then in the future at international level. Omar Kellyman goes from Aston Villa to Chelsea for 19 million. The promising midfielder with just 6 Villa appearances says that he is, quote, buzzing to wear the shirt, end quote, after signing the 6-year deal. Gee, this one, I have to admit, caught me a little bit off guard, given the amount of players that Chelsea has and the fact that this player is so young with very little experience. But I am interested to hear your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, this is PSR, not money laundering, but it's definitely a move to kind of make sure clubs are passing PSR, and that's about it really. I feel bad for the kid, who's probably not one of the better players, not a bad player, not one of the better players in Villa's academy, to kind of go into the Chelsea Academy now where, the standard is just so much higher. And really it's just, kind of a money move at kind of boardroom level, not really, putting Omari Kellyman's, actual footballing career priority. That's really how I see this. It's not a great look.
Yeah, I'm not like I said, it caught me off guard for sure, and I'm not a particular fan of it, but I do hope that it works out for him, because you'd hate to see a young player with, let's be honest about it, who has promise. You'd hate to see that to go to waste, really. And as always, we did not cover every single transfer that has taken place this window. So, G, are there any that we left out as of late that have caught your eye? And I think that I know one of them that's coming through here.
So yesterday, Man City officially announced Savio coming in, the 20-year-old Brazilian right winger. So he was on loan at Girona last year, had 11 goals in 41 appearances. He's just electric. One of the better players in La Liga last year. He's just that Jogo Bonita, Brazilian winger wonder kid. This is going to be super exciting. He's said that Riyad Mahrez is one of his favorite players growing up, has Riyad Mahrez's old number at City. So kind of all the stars are aligning. I think this is going to be a hell of a signing for City for now and for the future.
Yeah, it's definitely a big one. It's the one that we left out that probably caught the world of soccer by storm. But I don't have this one on our script here, G, but I did want to ask you, it seems as though, maybe apart from Chelsea, if you want to put them in this equation, but it seems as though the big clubs, at least, I would say even across Europe, really, but definitely in England, they're not really making too many moves that you don't see in Arsenal. I know Manchester United just signed the young center back, but really that may have been their first move. We're not seeing too many of the big clubs making any big signings, Barcelona, if you will, or, anywhere else that you might look across Europe. Do you think that that's going to change?
I think so. I think now that kind of the international tournaments are done, the players are not focused on that anymore, kind of, now kind of taking their summer break. I think now you're going to kind of see the push from now to the end of the window here. But yeah, it's too quiet for the big clubs. There's going to be some major moves coming. And even though we've talked about kind of some of the financial difficulties some of them are facing, I still think, they will, if they want to make a signing, they will find a way to make that signing. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of time, really.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking that, okay, now that the international tournaments are over, are we going to start hearing a little bit more? Because, yeah, like I said, Manchester United just made essentially their first signing. We haven't really heard too much from Real Madrid, a little bit, but not too much. We already knew Mbappe was going to go there. PSG, we haven't heard a great deal. And then we look across other teams in Europe. Yeah, Bayern Munich, we've heard quite a lot, but nothing really from Stuttgart or from Dortmund or, teams like this. So I think now, too, to your point, that we could start to really dial it in and see before the season starts up in a little less than a month, that more players will be transferring elsewhere. And as the summer continues, you can get all of the biggest transfer market news right here on Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As today's show concludes, we want to extend our greatest appreciation to each of you for being with us. Gee, this was our final episode of season 4 for Full Time. And whilst we know that there is no off season in soccer, it's one of the most unique sports in the world. The summer period does offer us an opportunity to close one page and open the next one very, very quickly. So with that being said, as always, well done, my friend.
No, thank you for having me. It's funny. Season 4 feels like it's been forever. It feels like we've been doing this for 6 months, but it also feels like we haven't, it's been a couple of months. Now it's done already. It's really came and went fast, and also was so long. Yeah, it was a fantastic season, and so looking forward to season 5.
Me too, man. And a reminder, of course, to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of July 29th, 2024. So that will be our first episode in 2 weeks' time of season 5. And we are very much looking forward to kicking off what will be the next season in football. So really no off season, as we say, just a 2-week period where we get to kind of kick back, chill, reset, and recharge. And in that show, it will be short and sweet, but we will look at the summer transfer market and the MLS. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.